Welcome back to Leading Edge. Good to have you along. Another August is just about in the books, which means we have now made it, 7 years since the Toledo water crisis. And if there is one constant in all that time, is that we still have large algal blooms on Lake Erie, the source of drinking water, after all, for hundreds of thousands of Toledo area customers, as we discovered back in August of 14. Now, it's not that nothing's been done about the flow of algae feeding nutrients into the western Lake Erie basin, but a question that's been asked and not resolved, not to my satisfaction, during all this time is it enough? For years, dating back to, I think, the 70s, he must have just been a kid, Jeff Reutter has studied Lake Erie and everything going on in that great lake. He served as the director of the Ohio Sea Grant at Ohio State University Stone Lab. Mr. Reutter, an aquatic biologist. Good to see you. This year's bloom expected to be mild. Was it? Is it? And does it signify progress in the ongoing fight with harmful algal blooms?
Well, Jerry, it's great to be here. And yes, it is predicted to be mild. We won't know for sure what the final outcome is until pretty early this fall, or actually late this fall, about November. But right now, it looks like it will be mild.
And if that is back-to-back years, as I have read that would be, is that a concrete sign of progress?
Absolutely not. The fact that we have two low years in a row is simply because we've had a low discharge or not a whole lot of rain over the last 2 years. And that's the first time we've seen that since 2007.
Some years ago, as you well know, our state, the state of Michigan in Canada, at least the province of Ontario, reached an agreement to reduce phosphorus loading into Lake Erie by 40% by 2025. Remember back at the time, it seemed like that's a ways off. Doesn't seem that way anymore. We're staring down the barrel of 2022. Are we on track to make that goal a reality?
We're really not, Jerry. And I was the U.S. chair of the team of 25 U.S. and Canadian scientists that came up with that target, that 40% reduction. And right now, I can tell you that 40% reduction is based on the flow-weighted mean concentration of phosphorus, or the concentration of phosphorus in the water out of the Maumee River from 2008. And the concentration in 2008 and the concentration in 2021 is virtually the same. We have seen no progress.
And we're aiming at a 40% reduction by 2025. Meanwhile, as you also well know, the state of Ohio spends tens of millions. It will go into hundreds of millions of dollars on its recently expanded, in our area, H2 Ohio program of voluntary measures. Is that program, in your opinion, effective?
I think the H2 Ohio program is a very good program. Particularly the portion that's managed by the Ohio Department of Natural Resources that is looking at wetland construction. And I was also the chair of the Board of Trustees of the Ohio Nature Conservancy. And we know that by the proper siting and construction of wetlands, we can improve this issue, but we haven't constructed enough wetlands, and we won't construct enough wetlands. It's going to take additional action by farmers. They put in the majority of the load, the amount of phosphorus. It's going to take additional action beyond what we've seen. H2 Ohio is taking steps in the right direction, but it's going to take more.
Okay, let's go to agriculture. It gets much of the blame for feeding the problem through, with runoff of fertilizer and manure used as fertilizer. As much as 80% of the problem, I have read, placed at agriculture's feet. Yet we recently learned the city of Maumee has been dumping untreated raw sewage into the Maumee River unchecked for a quarter of a century. Toledo still does the same during extreme rainfalls, as you know, and they do so with the EPA's knowledge and permission. Given that information, at least some of which is new pertaining to, does that change our view of ag's responsibility?
No. In fact, when we look at the Maumee River, it's not 80%, Jerry. It's up to 89%. And these are numbers that we've gotten from
89% coming from agricultural sources.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And the information from Maumee is, disappointing. But prior to getting that information, when we look at the load coming out of the Maumee River, the amount of phosphorus, when I say load, the amount of phosphorus coming out of the Maumee River, We see that about 4% of that is coming from failing septic tanks. About 1% of that is coming from combined sewer overflows that you were referring to.
Yeah, yeah.
Those numbers are going down, particularly the combined sewer overflow number going down since the mid 1990s. And we've seen the load of phosphorus, the amount of phosphorus and the concentration of that phosphorus going up since the mid 1990s. In the mid 1990s is right about the time we started seeing the large animal operations coming into Northwest Ohio.
Okay, so what we're doing with H2 Ohio, you like us doing it, but
Oh,
it
yeah,
is not.
totally.
It's not, the improvement is not at any pace to do what we have promised to do and to really address. Is it your view then that voluntary measures on the part of agriculture, farmers, won't work?
I think we've made significant progress on voluntary measures for particularly for people who are putting on commercial fertilizer. But I do not believe voluntary measures are going to work for people who are applying manure, because our current guidelines allow them to apply more manure than is needed for maximum crop production. So the more animals, and we have seen since 2005, the number of animals in the Maumee watershed has increased from 9 million to 20 million. These are just huge increases. Those numbers continue to go up.
And they're going up, and that is all approved or licensed through. I mean, the state of Ohio is granting licenses for these places to happen. Isn't that true?
When you hear the term CAFO, combined animal feeding operation, that we give licenses to the very large ones, but the small, the units that are not of that CAFO size, so less than 700 cows, less than 1.25 million chickens, less than 2,500 hogs, those are not regulated as the large unit operations would be. And that's where we've seen the biggest growth. It's in the unregulated large animal operations. Most people would think 699 cows or 2,499 chicken or hogs is an awful lot of cows or hogs, but those are below the size that we consider regulated.
Well, I know if I'm going to be regulated at 700, I'm bringing in 699. Lake Erie advocates, as you know, filed a lawsuit seeking to force the U.S. EPA to invoke more aggressive cleanup measures, including total maximum daily loads (TMDLs). The suit, I believe, says the U.S. Clean Water Act calls for stronger enforcement. Now I am eyeing a September 20th date in which the sides are scheduled for a mediation hearing, hoping to pound out some type of a solution. Are you optimistic that a solution that will really work could it be reached?
It's going to be very difficult, in my opinion, for that to happen. It depends on I don't know the person who's going to be mediating this. I don't know how strong that person is. I don't know how knowledgeable that person is. There's a lot of information to sift through. I think it's going to be very, very difficult to get us to a point that I would say this problem is going to be solved by the actions that come out of that meeting.
And with that answer, you see why I wanted Jeff Reutter to join us on Leading Edge. This guy has for years. He observes it, he knows it. He's the scientist, he's the aquatic biologist, and he shoots straight. And if the word is, folks, we got a long way to go and not that much time to get there. He'll tell us that. So I want to thank Jeff Reutter, former director of Ohio State University Stone Lab, veteran lake watcher, aquatic biologist, keeping us on the leading edge of efforts to one day, I'm staying optimistic, get a handle on the algae problem plaguing our fresh water supply. Best to you, my friend.
Thanks so much, Jerry. Take care.
Take care.